episode of This Woman Works. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we're going to get into the journey of Miss Clarissa Ford. How you doing, Clarissa?
I am good. It is a Wednesday night. It is Wednesday, right?
Yes, it is indeed. But I want to thank you for joining the show. Thank you for allowing me to bring your story, your journey to everyone that's listening and taking it. And maybe, just maybe, the people that are listening in will be able to learn something or take something from your journey and what all that you bring to the table. But before we get into your journey, of course, I open up every show with the Black Girl Magic moment. And on this episode, I'm gonna start it off with the Black women of NABJ. Yes, last week I did not record any because I was in Cleveland, Ohio. Yes, Cleveland, Ohio. The reason why I was there was for the National Association of Black Journalists National Convention, which it was its 50th, by the way. And I just, I gotta say this. It was a lot of powerhouse black women that were there. A lot of powerhouse black men, but there's a lot of powerhouse black women that were there, spitting knowledge, commanding the stages. I mean, I still remember at the ESPN mentoring breakfast, you got Christine Williamson and you got Elle Duncan from ESPN there commanding the stage, doing a great and graceful job. And I just want to commend all the black women in ABJ for the style, grace, command, knowledge that you were spending the entire time is greatly appreciated. And from me to you all, love all y'all, rooting for all of you, and anything I can do, please let me know. Now I know, Clarissa, you're probably not too familiar with NABJ or the National Association of Black Journalists, but I just had to kind of take this moment and give them their love and their flowers for all the great, wonderful things they did in Cleveland this past week.
So it's funny you say that. One of my childhood aspirations was to be a courtroom reporter. So I am very familiar with the organization.
Okay, nice, nice. Yeah, just I had to take a moment and show them some love on my show, and it's never a dull moment, never calm moment, but always a great moment when it comes to the black women of NABJ. Um, and speaking of never a dull moment or anything like that, we want to get into Clarissa's life and her
Ooh.
journey. And we want to start by taking it all the way back to young Clarissa. Now, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Memphis, North Memphis to be exact. So the capital of Memphis is North Memphis. And I dare anybody to
Oh,
disagree with me on that.
ooh, okay. So I would think I imagine when I hear North Memphis, I think about Project
You
Pat.
should absolutely think
North,
about
put your
Project Pat.
thumbs up.
You should
Yeah,
definitely think about Project Pat and put your thumbs up.
yep. So how was it growing up in North Memphis?
You know what? North Memphis was an experience. Like I'm a product of the 80s, kid of the 90s. And it was a fun experience. It was an enlightening experience. There were definitely some things growing up in North Memphis because the dynamic of it, I think, changed from when my mom grew up until me coming into the 80s and 90s and things like that. But it was very family oriented when I grew up. Like I remember my great grandmother having everybody at the house for holidays and cooking, and my grandmother cooking and barbecues, and just being able to go to different neighbors' house and play with their kids. And a lot of us still keep in contact with each other today. Now, granted, the neighborhood has changed a lot over the 40 plus years since I was, a kid, but it's definitely, Memphis has never lost its culture.
Hmm.
So,
Okay. Yeah, it's Memphis. I will say this. My one of my best friends actually lives in Memphis.
mhm.
So, well, I'm sorry, he lived in Memphis. He doesn't live there anymore. anymore, but he lived there pretty much a long time. So I definitely the Memphis has a different feel than probably any other city you could think of in the South to me. It's different, and not saying anything bad different, just saying it just has a different feel about it than any other city I can think of in the South.
And it's always going to be that way. Like I tell people all the time, I joke, but I've been all over this country and I've talked to people all over this country, and Memphis has the greatest food in all of America, regardless as to what anybody says. Like if you're looking for authentic Southern cuisine, Memphis is it. And
Okay.
90% of the people in Memphis can cook. So it was it was definitely a culture shock moving to Middle Tennessee.
Hey, leave us alone. Leave
It,
us alone. I'm sorry, but I know the barbecue is definitely
top
is
tier.
not the same.
Best
I know
barbecue
that.
in the world. I don't know what
I'm
St.
there.
Louis is doing, and Texas is a close second. Carolina shouldn't even be in the conversation.
Oh boy. Oh boy. She's coming spitting hot fire to me. But definitely, I would say, the barbecue, yeah, Memphis, yeah, y'all got that one, hands down. There is no argument to me. But just asking, going back to your childhood,
Mhm.
um, as a child, just mentioned the courtroom reporter that you thought about being that, but what other thing did you kind of aspire to be when you were a kid?
So I think my family wanted me to become an attorney. Like I'm a master debater, and I was always told that I speak well. Like I was trained for public speaking from a young age in church.
Hmm.
And so between church and preschool, I was always doing something where public speaking was like at the forefront, but also singing. But
Hmm.
we don't tell people about the singing anymore because it's in a past life. But it was like you were built for this and this is what you're going to do. And for a very long time, I thought, okay, this is what I was going to do. But, growing up and having a lot of changes and, suffering from grief as a result of loss at a very young age kind of shifted a lot of things for me. And so I went through a phase where I was normal, rebellious teenager, didn't want to do anything that everybody kind of wanted to push me to do because I had to find my identity after that loss.
Hmm.
And so just coming back into that, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a courtroom reporter. Um, Went to school and my mom asked me to help her out at work, one day while I was in high
Hmm.
school. And my mom worked in F&B forever. She's done a lot of different things, but F&B I think was her passion. And then my family has done catering since I can remember. So it was one of those things where I kind of got roped into helping out. I was like, this is cool and this is easy money. And so
Hmm.
I got a job being a corporate trainer for a food service operation that basically did food service in the airports. So it was like
Hmm.
Sodexo for airports. And I
Hmm.
was like, I'm making more money than my friends who currently are spending thousands of dollars in college. And I don't really
Hmm.
want to be here anyway. So why am I wasting these people's time? And so I did F&B for a while. I mean, eventually I went back to school, but I did
Hmm.
F&B for a while, and then I things changed with the airport situation. Like the company got bought out, got
Hmm.
put with a bigger company, and like that was the first time I'd ever experienced like a buyout and what happens with that type of transition. And got my very first like table waiting job. Well, excuse me, my second
Hmm.
table waiting job on the
Hmm.
street. And that's, figuratively speaking, on the street. That's what we call restaurants outside of the airport operation.
Hmm.
And I worked a full 8 hours one day and I made $32.
Yikes.
And I came from working at the airport, doing
Hmm.
half that amount of time and making $300 to $400 a day.
Oh boy.
And
No,
I
that
was
that.
like, yeah, this
Mm.
isn't going to work for me. So
Hmm.
I actually applied to work at the front desk at a hotel. And I didn't think I was going to
Mhm.
get it. I thought I was going to be an F&B girl until I was, no longer here. And
Mhm.
the front office manager at the time took a chance on me, and I made it, my mission to not disappoint her. And I like quickly moved
Mhm.
up within like 6 months. And so for the past, gosh, 26 years, I have been in the hospitality industry.
Okay. All right. Um, well, we're going to get into more, your journey
Yeah.
into the hospitality industry. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial
Okay.
break. When we come back, we're kind of dive into that just a little bit more on episode 51 of This Woman Works. We'll be right back.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off of these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get this the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back
I
on the show.
some technical difficulties.
We are back on the show. We are going to, of course, go into the next moment with Clarissa Ford and talking about her career and her journey. Now we talked about first kind of growing up in North Memphis, and we talked about Project Pat Door. Put your thumb. We did that, but we're going to dive into now talking about Clarissa's career. There we go. Got you back up there. We're going to dive
Awesome.
into your career and your journey into your career. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, like I said, I had a, a front office manager at a hotel basically take a chance on me as a front desk slash night auditor. And it
Hmm.
was in a luxury boutique hotel. Like I'd already worked banquets
Hmm.
in like the Grand Cuba of the South, the world famous Peabody Hotel. But working the
Hmm.
hotel operation side of it was completely different from anything I'd ever done in food and beverage. And so transitioning into that and doing front desk at a
Hmm.
again luxury boutique hotel was a completely different experience because I had firsthand
Hmm.
contact with some of the biggest names you ever wanted to see. And I had to, I mean, I'd seen a lot of people working in the airport, but this was like way different from that.
Hmm. Okay. All right. You know, you talked about hospitality and you talked about being in the hospitality field. I want to kind of ask, when you started going into hospitality and doing hospitality, what was that one moment where you were like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
It's funny you say that. In the industry, we have this saying: you either hate this industry or you love it. It's like a marriage.
Hmm.
And I realized that this was a space for me. I got out and got back in countless times. I went and did human resources, I went and did accounting, and I still always managed to keep a part time or a second full time job in the industry. And then I got to a point where I was like,
Hmm.
I'm never doing this again. I'm over it. I hate it here. And a friend of mine called me back, and it was like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it for a very long time because I'm good at it.
Hmm.
And as crazy as it gets, I think this is where I am at peace. So
Okay. All right. So just wanted to ask as well. Now, in hospitality, of course, you know, there's always inklings about anyone wanting to do hospitality or be in that industry. When was your first kind of inkling that you actually liked to do hospitality?
I think that's always been my thing. Like, again, my family has always been in hospitality, and I've always had a servant attitude in anything that I've ever done.
Hmm.
My mother used to host some of the most elaborate dinner parties or family gatherings and things like that. And so that's something that I always grew up seeing. And so I feel like it's just
Hmm.
something that came natural to do.
Okay. All right. And what can you describe or talk about one of your, I guess, greatest moments in doing hospitality that you this just stands out the most to you?
There's so many. There is absolutely so many. Like, again, I have met some of the most famous people in the world, and they are some of the most humble people. And so I've been fortunate enough to do that. But I think my greatest moments come from when I have been a mentor to somebody else and I see them capitalize or maximize their full potential.
Okay, all right. So you're speaking on the mentor part of it. Now, I know in the beginning you weren't a mentor, but eventually you became a mentor. How was that transition in hospitality becoming, coming into hospitality to transitioning to being a mentor to those that are trying to become, I guess professionals in the hospitality field?
You know what? Again, I never set out to be a mentor. It was kind of though one of those things that just happened.
Hmm.
I think becoming a mom during my career and just having a second nature to kind of lead and guide people, or that
Hmm.
little person that I was responsible for, it just kind of made it easy to do. And then I saw a lot of my younger self in people who were coming into the industry. And it's like, you want to protect and you want to
Hmm.
say, okay, I did that and that didn't go over well. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to go over well for you. So let me stop you before you go down that road. Like, I've
Hmm.
already done it. And yes, I'm bruised, but not broken. So I don't want you to get the bruises.
Okay, all right. So definitely, I can, you can basically, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but becoming a mother and also that, just being in the industry combined kind of led you to be like kind of watching over those coming into the industry. Am I correct there?
That and getting into management early.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So how was that getting into management early? Because I know that is a tall task for a lot of people when they get into management early and they're not, they're sometimes they're talking to people that are the same age or older than they are. So how was that going into management early for you?
It let me tell you, it was definitely an experience. That's probably the most politically correct I can say, that it was definitely an experience. And it was a lot of me having to learn how to check my ego before I try to correct someone else's.
Hmm.
And understanding that those feelings are often not personal.
Hmm.
Like, a lot of
Okay.
times, they have their issues or they have their concerns, or they have their grievances, but it's not necessarily directed towards me. It's directed towards the situation. I remember walking into a job in retail as a manager. And at that point, I'd had limited managerial, well, not managerial, but limited retail experience.
Hmm.
And there were people that were already, working for that retailer who, and that particular location, who felt like they were qualified for the job. But the regional HR director and the person that was over the zone for that department saw something different and wanted me to do it. And those people, basically, because they didn't like the fact that they brought somebody in from the outside and not hired one of their own, made things a little difficult. And it was, being young, like I was in my early 20s, and being young and not understanding that, I, became combative. Where I am now, almost, 20, 30 years later, is I understand why they felt that way. And I could have done a better job of stepping outside of my ego and allowing them to just feel that.
Okay. All right. Well, along your journey, like you mentioned, you find out a few things about yourself, but you also come across a few hindrances as well. We're going to get into those different things and, a little bit of advice you may have for those that may want to get into the hospitality field. But first, going to take another quick minute commercial break, and then we'll be right back on This Woman Works.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on This Woman Works with your host, Mike Patton, with special guest Clarissa Ford. Now, before we went to the commercial break, I did mention that may, kind of, I guess, change the journey or make the journey just a little bit more difficult. And those are hindrances along the way. Hindrances, if I can pronounce it, good gracious. But yeah, everyone has, their obstacles they have to face. And I'm pretty sure you had one that stands out above all of them when it comes to your journey. Can you tell everyone about that hindrance and how you overcame it?
So I think the biggest one was becoming a mom. And
Hmm.
for me, it wasn't about being a mom, it was about understanding the work life balance that was required and setting
Hmm.
those boundaries. And I didn't know
Okay.
how.
Wow. Okay.
And so I went through a lot of stress at work as a result. I went through a lot of stress at home as a result. And I questioned myself as an associate. I questioned myself as a mom. And it was like, how do I find this balance? How do I make this work? And I remember someone coming to me and saying, people are only going to do what you allow them to do. And this was a boss. She said, you have to learn the power of no. No, you can't
Hmm.
work late because you have to go home and you have to do homework. No, you can't come early because you have to make sure that little people have breakfast and they are at school. Your time is your time. And anything that you can't get done within the 8 to 10 hours that you're scheduled for means that you need to focus on better time management.
Mm, that's really wow. Okay. All right. All right. So as far as overcoming that, how was that journey to overcoming that for you?
I was fortunate enough about, I want to say, because it was later in my career, but I want to say about 8 years ago,
Hmm.
to have a general manager who, and I was a director of sales, I had a general manager who had done the single dad thing and raised his daughter in the industry. And I remember probably within my first 2 weeks of starting, my daughter has like these super elaborate birthday parties, and I would put on these big productions by myself. My mom would help sometimes, but my mom was just like, I'm sick, you are on your own this year. And I did it for an entire weekend. I went back to work that Monday, and I told him, you know what? I don't want to lie to you. I am not going to be productive today. I cannot feel my feet, my legs, and barely my face. His response to me was, go home. And thank you for being honest. And when
Hmm.
I came back the next day, he told me that he respected and he appreciated me for being honest with him about what I was experiencing at that time. And if ever I needed him for anything, or if ever I needed to say, okay, I'm not going to be here today, mentally or physically, then it was okay.
Okay. All right. That's definitely a different perspective in terms of having a boss to be able to understand your situation because he's going through something of a similar situation. That's awesome that you were able to have someone that understand and have compassion and try to, I guess, put themselves in your footsteps, even though, of course, he's a man, you're a woman, still kind of
Right.
somewhat put himself in your footsteps, which is awesome.
I think
Um,
big picture
I
on
also
that,
wanted to ask as well. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I think big picture on that was transparency is so important.
Hmm.
You don't have to tell all of your business, but you do have to be forthcoming about things that specifically relate to, your workplace, your performance. And I think leaders, whether it's property level management or above property support, respect someone who is coming to them and saying, okay, I am experiencing something
Hmm.
and I need to figure this out on my own. I am asking for time, or I'm asking for grace to figure it out. And what can I do in the interim? Like, I
Gotcha.
think a lot of people are afraid to have those conversations. And the industry has changed a lot since COVID. So
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Now here's the part where I want to ask about advice, and not necessarily the advice that you have received, but what advice? Well, a little of both, I should say.
okay.
The first one is going to be what advice was the best advice that you received over your career?
Never let somebody tell you what you're worth. And if they do and it doesn't meet your needs, you don't want to work there. And that was from a female regional manager. I'd applied for a job with a company I didn't really know much about, and I had just kind of learned on the fly after applying. And it turned out to be like one of the greatest success stories in the entire hospitality industry, honestly. But I worked for them at a time where they were only 51 hotels, and they literally bought, I want to say, 42 of them in one day. But I
Mm,
now they're like well into the thousands of hotels. But I told her a price, and she said, "Can you honestly live off of that?" And I said, "No, but I think that's what the market pays." And her response to me was, like I said, never let anybody tell you what you're worth. This is what you're going to go to your next interview, and this is what you're going to ask for. And
Hmm.
it was more money than I'd ever made. And I went to that interview and I asked for it. And not only did they give me what I asked for, they actually gave me an additional $9,000. So,
Ooh, God is good. God is good. Mm, mm. Wow. That's a okay. I'm got my pen over here. I'm
and
taking notes.
I'll be transparent enough to say that number was almost $40,000 more than what I was leaving the job to take that job for.
Wow. Wow. That's that. Yeah, I'm definitely taking notes over here. I'm taking notes. I wrote that down. Don't let anybody tell you what you were. I wrote that down real quick. Gotta take notes on that one. And just for you in general, just with the experience that you've had in the career that you've built in the hospitality field, what is a in management as well? My apologies. I don't want to slight you there. Um, what is some advice you can tell someone that's coming up in the business? Uh, about what they can, what about what if they want to do this for their career, what is some advice you can give
So it's two really simple things. We're selling rooms, not saving lives. So nothing that
them?
we do is difficult. It's more about repetition.
Hmm.
And the second part of that is anything you break, we can fix. But you have to be honest and you have to be authentic when explaining. And you have to be accountable. Like, own that you made a mistake and then let's work together to fix it. Because if you can't own that you made a mistake, you're going to make that same mistake again until you realize, okay,
Hmm.
this was really bad and I don't ever want to do this again. And I don't ever want my teams to do anything in fear because that's definitely
Hmm.
when people start messing up.
You're
You know,
right.
I
You're
I,
right.
I tell people all the time, if you mess something up, the very best thing to do is please already have a solution. And I know in a perfect world, in an imperfect world, it's not going to always happen. But come and tell me that you messed up and already have a solution.
Hmm.
That was I made a very big mistake in my career. Like it was very, very bad. And I solved the issue. And then I went to my manager, who I did not have a great relationship with, and I said, I curse word up, but
Hmm.
I fixed it, and this is where we are. And she looked at me and she just started laughing and she said, thank you.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah,
and that experience taught me that you can get a long way if you own the mistake and you fix it.
that's right. That's right. That's right. And definitely, I want to say to you, thank you for coming on this show. Thank you
Absolutely.
for breaking down your journey from young Clarissa to your career to any advice and things that you've have in terms of your experience in the hospitality and management industries. And if you want, can you tell everyone, if you want to tell everyone where they can find you on the social medias or anything like that, or anything you have going on?
Don't
The
go
floor
looking
is
for
yours
me
if you
on
want
social
to.
media, people. you, can,
Well,
you can find me on LinkedIn.
there we go. She said she's about the business, y'all. She's about
You
the
can find me on
business.
LinkedIn. You can also schedule a
There you
tour
go.
of the properties that I support by going to my LinkedIn page.
Again, folks, she is about the business, y'all. She is about the business. And of course, I'm about the business as well, the business of bringing you these podcasts. My name is Mike Patton. I'm the host and producer of This Woman Works. Of course, this show, definitely you can see it on YouTube at the Mike Patton Network. You can also see it on on any social media as well. Well, I would say one social media, that would be Facebook, and another be LinkedIn. But anyway, two social media places. You can see it. You can also listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. As far as me, you can find me on social media. Yeah, you can definitely find me. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter. I will not call it X because the only X I recognize is DMX and Malcolm X. So you will find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePaton82. You can also find me on Instagram and threads at that's THA, that's THG underscore general underscore MP. Again, go check out the Mike Patton Network where you've got this show. You've also got Tour the NC South if you like football. You've also got a new show starting called Let's Talk HBCUs with my co-host Scott Wallace. There's a lot there, a lot of knowledge, a lot of different areas that I want to talk about and approach. And you can go ahead and join the ride by subscribing to the Mike Patton Network. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this episode 51 of This Woman Works. I'm your host, Mike Patton. That's Clarissa Ford. We're out. Peace.
People in Memphis say you be everywhere.